Yep. Good evening, everyone. So yesterday we learnt about controlled components, how we can pass data from parent to child. So in components concept, yesterday we discussed about controlled components. So what are controlled components and what are properties? We learnt about props. So by using properties, we can control the behavior of any component. So one example I showed you how to design a grid. So we learned how to design a grid. Grid is nothing but a table and we will make it work in next level. As of now, what we designed is just bring the data and show. Later data will come from API. We will able to interact with the data like insert, update, delete, all those interactions we will design. So in this example, so we learned conditional rendering also. So here we discussed the conditional rendering. Conditional rendering means it can change according to situation. So now you can add more functionalities later when we design a real project we will do. Like you saw Telerik. Telerik people have a button for sorting, filtering, searching, everything we can design. But for that you need design of bootstrap and all. You can create such designs. So you must able to first understand how data is transported from parent to child. Up to that everyone is clear now? Right. Now here in interviews one question asked related to this concept. So the frequently asked question is, what is props drilling? In React.js experience level interviews also, this question is very common. What is props drilling, property drilling? So property drilling and how we can handle this property drilling. This is very famous question in interviews for experienced people. These days for fresher also they are asking. Props drilling is nothing but, for example, let's say we are having a component here. So this is a parent component. And we are having one child component. This is child. So we are having a child component. So let's say this is the child component. Now child is at level 1. So at level 1, we have child component. Now in the child component, there can be another component. In that child, there can be another component. You can say like nested, child inside child. And this is child at level 2. Level 2. So we have this level 1. So level 1 and level 2. Now parent is going to transport data from parent. We can send data to, yeah, from parent we can send data to the child. We can send data to child. Child is this one, but we cannot send data to this one. Not possible. If you ask why, will you ask why? That means you don't know JavaScript. Huh? If you ask why, that means you don't know proper JavaScript. Because in JavaScript you learned closure. Nah? So closure means the members of outer function are accessible to inner, and every function have a closure. Na? So inner function are not accessible to outer, and inner means only one level, not at multi-level possible. That requires drilling. This is called property drilling. Property drilling means we can access here, parent can send data to child, but from this child you have to send data to second, because the parent of level 2 is level 1 na. From here we need to send data directly. From here you cannot send data, we cannot directly pass properties there, so that is restriction with properties. That is the reason in interviews they ask this question, because regularly we need something like that. That means we will have a component inside component, another component inside that component. Then we need to transport data to all. So this problem, this issue is called property drilling. Now, what is the solution? Parent should able to send data to any level of component, any level of component. That is possible by using context API. So in React, this is also very famous topic of interviews. Remember, several React interviews, major topic is transporting data. Even in Angular also. Angular React like technologies, majority of interviews, they will ask questions about transporting data from one component to another, because that is the challenging one and that is the regularly required in real time. It is not easy to transport data from one component to another. So why not possible? Because generally web applications are stateless. I told you a point. So now what is the solution is property drilling can be avoided and we can manage by using context API. So in React, we have a context API where you can transport data to any level. From parent, we can transport data to any level of child. We can do that. Through properties also we can do, but we have to go like a waterfall model, like one parent to child, from child to again child, like that we have to do. So let's see how this context API works. And another challenging is how to transport data from child to parent, because closure will not allow. Na? A closure will not allow a inner function to send data to outer. So we need to handle that also. Let's see first this concept. So what is property drilling? Property drilling is nothing but, so it is a mechanism of transporting data from, it is a mechanism of transporting data from parent to child. Transporting data from parent to child to multi-level hierarchy. So here I'll give a point where child can be nested, where child can be nested. Parent cannot send data to nested child. It requires property drilling technique. So property drilling technique means parent, child, its child. Like this, we have to transport data. So this child will be at level 1 and this is at level 2. Right. So the child at level 1 is the parent of child at level 2, right? So from there we can transport the data, right? So this is the concept property drilling. How we can handle this? So how to avoid property drilling? Avoid or prevent property drilling by using context API. By using context API, you can handle that. So the context API, what is it? How it works, we will see. So we will see one real world example also with that. For example, you may ask, show me one real time example where we use this. Everywhere you will find. For example, I will show you which we will implement in next level. Suppose we have Amazon. In Amazon, you can see we have a search bar, we have a navigation area, and we have the details at the bottom. Now, what we done is you type something here like mobiles and click on search. Then it is going to get the mobiles information and show below. Am I right? Actually, the below is a different component. So that means actually, so here I will show you. So this is one component. Yeah, you can see this is one component. This is another component. And this is another component. Results is another component. That means what is happening here is nav bar is in the parent. Now in the parent component, you entered some data. This data is passed to child. And child component is collecting that mobiles and returning the result of mobiles. Not only that, the parent, sometimes this can be included in the parent also. From here also data is transported now. That means you selected get it by today or get it in 2 days or brand like Samsung, it will display the details here. So everything is not happening in one component. This is several components. This is several components. We are not having one component. We are having many components. So obviously data is transported from parent to child. Are they using properties or context? That depends on hierarchy. If only one level they have to send the data, they will use which one? Props. They have to send data at multi-level, then they use what? Context API. Let's see how it works. We will see one real example, how we can transport the data. Say, first, you need to understand. So what is context API? You need to know about what is the React context API. What's the concept of this? Actually, context is not a new concept. If you are working with web applications, web designing, web development, you should know that every web page have a context memory. Every web page will have a context memory. Context memory means, actually, see, generally context is memory name. Every website will have every page will have a context memory. For example, suppose this is server, and what happens, we are having page 1 and some page 2. We are having two pages. You requested page 1. When you requested page 1, a memory is allocated for page 1 on server. A memory is allocated for page 1, and this page 1 is loaded into the memory. Now what happens is, you finished using page 1, you are moving to page 2, then the memory allocated for page 1 is deleted. If memory allocated for page 1 is deleted, whatever happened in page 1 is not available to page 2. So that's what I explained in first session. State management. I told you use state. I told you some points about state. Why you need state? Because HTTP is stateless protocol. It cannot remember information between requests. So what is context memory is nothing but, actually, you are watching page 1, but inside page 1 you are watching page 2. That means you are bringing the page without removing page 1. Inside page 1 you can access page 2. How it is possible? How it is possible to bring another page and display in our current page? Through iframe you can do. You learned iframe, na? Through iframe you can bring another page and embed into the current page. Am I right? Through Ajax we can do. Through Ajax call, we can make a request to another page, bring the content and display. Already we done that with JSON, right? That means accessing another page and using in the current page we can do. When you are doing that, you remember here, page 1, this page 1 is having, this page 1 is having a context memory. That means the page 1 will have a context memory. This page 1 is going to have context memory. Page 1 is going to have context memory. By default, it will have context memory. And actually, this is page 2. Am I right? The context memory of page 1, the context memory of page 1 is accessible to page 2. It is accessible to page 2. So what is context memory? Context memory is the memory allocated for a page, and it is accessible to other pages which run within the context of same page. Understood? Not outside the page, that run inside the same page. If any page can run inside the context of same page, then the memory can be shared to it. So we can share memory of parent to the child. That is the speciality of context. And React provides this facility. Java, .NET and all other web technologies advantage is by default they have context memory. By default, those technologies have a context memory. Already context is present. But in React, what we have to do is we have to create context and use context. That means if you are using Java, .NET, PHP, Python server-side pages, every page by default have a context. You don't need to create any context memory. Every page have a context memory. But in React, we have to manually create this if we want to use it. So we have to create a context memory, store the data in context memory, and make it available to the child. What is advantage of context memory is if another page is working. So if another page is working inside page 2, suppose page 3 is present, this page 3 also can access. It can access the context of which one? Page 1. The context of page 1 is accessible to any level of child. Any level of child can access that context memory. That means you don't need prop drilling. Prop drilling means from parent we will send to level 1. From level 1 we will send to level 2. Now we can send from parent to any level directly. So how you can prevent property drilling by using what? Context. So what is the concept of context and how this context actually work? Let's see. So context is the memory allocated for a page. Context is the memory allocated for a page. And context memory is accessible to any page that runs within the context of that runs within the context that run within the context of parent. Context is accessible from any level of hierarchy. Context is accessible from any level of hierarchy. But what is problem is context is not available outside the page. Suppose from one page to another page, you want to transport, then context is not available. Context is memory allocated for a page, and the context memory is accessible to any page that run within the context of parent. So it is accessible from any level of hierarchy. Any level of hierarchy it is accessible. So here React provides a context API. React provides a context API which allows to create a context for parent and use the context across components at multi-level hierarchy. and use the context across components at multi-level hierarchy. First, we will see one basic example how this entire process works. How we need to handle information, I will show you. Let's create one design. So I'm adding a component called context demo. Context demo.jsx. Okay. Export function context demo. And this I will keep a heading parent component. So class container fluid. Okay. So this is parent component. I will make it in the startup. So it will start with context demo. Okay, this is parent component we are having. Now let's create here, just for your understanding sake, everything I will create in one file. In real example, I will divide into separate. For example, see, here we are having another function. Function is so level 1 and return. So this is having level 1. Okay. Similarly, I will use another one level 2 and this is level 2. Now see, I am accessing level 1 inside the parent. We are accessing level 1. Okay. And inside level 1, I am accessing which one? Level 2. Level 2 we are accessing in level 1. And to give a clarity here, BG danger. So text white. Okay. Here I will keep BG warning and text white and padding 4. Here we will put BG success or dark and text white padding 4. I'm just adding multi-level hierarchies to understand. Huh? So we have parent and level 1. Inside level 1, we have level 2. In level 2, there can be level 3. There can be any nested hierarchy. So in parent component, here in parent component, let's go to the parent. I will put a text box. Input type is text and placeholder is username. I will just ask some username to enter. When username is entered here, I need to transport that to level 1 and level 2. That means that username entered in the parent should be available to child and its child. We need to transport this data from parent to child and its child also. Now let's see how it is possible, how we can transport the data. First point is other technologies have a context ready. When you create a page, context is created. But in React, we have to manually create context. So we have to create context for which component? Parent component. So how to create context is first point. Create a context memory. for parent. You have to create a context memory for parent. How to create a context memory for parent is we have to import create context from React. You have to import create context from React, and we need to create context name is equal to create context, and in that we put null because data will be provided later. So React 19x version context name must be in camel case, not camel case, must be in Pascal case. Pascal case means every word first letter caps. Earlier there was no problem. You can write in uppercase, lowercase, camel case, anything, but recently they made some changes. In latest context, the context name must be in Pascal case, means every word first letter must be caps. That is compulsory. Earlier we don't have this. Recently they added this rule for context. Another important is after creating the context. So you created a context. After creating context, so the parent should provide the scope. Let's see here. At the top, we are creating a context. LET user context is equal to what it is? Create context. And default, it will have what? Null. Right. That means now we created a context memory. So, and its name is user context. Now remember, this context will have a scope. Context will have a scope. What does it means is, for example, suppose this is parent. So we have parent. In parent, we are having some child. Actually, this is, suppose, let's say, this is context scope. Inside context scope, child 1 and inside that child 2 are working. That means inside the context scope, child 1, child 2 are working. Outside the context scope, some child 3 is working. Child 3 is working. Now the context memory of parent is accessible only to these two. It is not accessible to this one. You cannot access here. That means inside parent, there can be several child, but every child cannot use the context. How? That means every child cannot use the context. The child that runs inside the context can work. That means you have to set a fence for context. Where context starts, where context ends. We can put that. So only those child can use the context. Then how do we set the scope for context memory? That means, let's see. How we set the scope for context memory is in the parent. This is parent. In the parent, we have to set the context scope like this. What is the name? User context. This is the scope in that level 1. For example, if any component is outside this context, suppose we have level 2 here, that means it cannot use. So that means every context needs a scope also. We need to define a scope. Scope is defined by using the context name. That means you can decide which child can use the parent data. If the child is present inside the context scope, only that child can use. And remember, can level 2 use it now? Can level 2 use it? Yes, it can use it because level 2 is inside level 1. Level 2 is inside level 1, so it is possible. If level 2 is outside somewhere, then it cannot. But level 2 is inside level 1 and level 1 is inside context. So the context is accessible to level 2 also. It is accessible to level 2. So here you see now we have to define context and how, what is the data? What is the data it can access and send to the child? That means, for example, the data entered in text box, we need to pass. This context needs a value. Value indicates what information you want to store in context memory. Earlier, just few versions back, we used to use a provider here. Provider is used to locate the value in memory, bring the value and inject into the child. But recently they removed it. Instead of provider, we have to just use a value. If you are watching any 2 years back React.js videos on YouTube, you will see context people are using a provider. But it is outdated now. We are not using that provider and it is deleted from React. Now we have to use a value. Value contains data. What is the data? I want the data coming from this username text box. Na? We will do one thing. Constant uname, set uname is equal to what it is. Use state, it is an empty string. We will write a function handle name change. Am I right? And we will collect e set uname e dot target dot value and this should work on change handle name change. That uname you will send into the context. Am I right? That means the data of parent is this username. You can put anything, array, object, or array of objects, any type of data. As of now, we have username and username is in the context memory. Now, who can access the context? Level 1 can access the context and level 2 also, na? Right? So to access the context, we need a hook called let context. Context is equal to use context. Use context is the hook. By using this hook, you can access the context memory. So you cannot access context memory if there is no context memory. You have used use state, na? Have you created state? We are not creating state directly. We are using state because every component built in have a state. But context you have to manually create and you have to use. Okay, use context. Which context we want to use? User context. And this context contains the data coming from context memory. That data we will display in level 1. Here we want to display hello and that username. Username is in context now. And in level 2 also we want to use. Remember, we are not passing any data as property now. So now what we will do, go to level 2. In level 2 also you can create a, so let, what is it? Context is equal to use context. Which context? User context. And here also I want to display hi something. And I want to display that context value. And you observe now here, you run this and see, and you can see here it is accessible everywhere. So any component can directly use the context memory. It can access the context memory and use. And we are not passing data as properties now. We are not passing data as properties. Here there are no properties now. We are not passing data as properties. We are passing data through what? context. Again, so many interview questions will be there. In interview, they ask like if there is context. So if there is props, why you are using context? Suppose I want to send from parent to child, then we have props. Then why you have to use context? Because remember, every child component is not a controlled component. Understood? That means in a parent, you are using a child component. If child component is a controlled component, it will allow to pass data. But if child component is not a controlled component, it is an independent component, then how you send data? That means the interior question can be in another way. What is that? If child component is not a controlled component, how you will transport data from parent to child? What is solution? Context. If parent component is sending data to child component through properties, means the child component is a control. If you are using an uncontrolled component, it will not accept any properties. Then how you transport data? By using what? Context. Context allows to transport data from parent to child even if the component is not a controlled component. That means if anyone asks when to use properties, when to use context. When you are dealing with multi-level, then context is best. Another one, from parent to child you are sending, but child is not a controlled one. Parent is not a controlled one means it will not accept any properties. If it will not accept any properties, how you will transport data into it? By using what? Context, right? We'll see this example also. First point here, created the context. After that, parent component parent component must configure the context scope with value as provider. So context name and value is equal to whatever the data you want to handle. So here your child components will come. Context name. So what is the point here is context data is accessible only to the child components that run inside context scope. That run inside context scope. Right. Now, after creating context, another point is child component can access and use the context memory by using use context hook. By using use context hook. And the context name. So context contains data from parent. It contains the data coming from parent. So that is data coming from parent to child. So example I will copy here, but this is only syntax example. So this is context demo dot .jsx. This is the context demo dot .jsx. In this, everything in one place I am keeping, but we will do a real world one now. We'll see one example. Just for clarity, I kept everything in one place. So now, what is the frequently asked question here? So why you need context memory? Why you need context API if data can be transported from parent to child, from parent to child using props? And we have two answers. If child component is not a controlled component, then data is transported using context, as it doesn't have any props, as it doesn't have any props. If child component is not a controlled component, that means if it is an uncontrolled component, then data is transported using context, as it doesn't have any properties. Another point, if child component is nested in hierarchy, then props drilling is required, which you can avoid using context API, which you can avoid using context API. That's the answer. So transporting data from parent to child. Right. So let's see one example of transporting data from child to parent, parent to child. So child to parent is a tough one. That's next level. We will see first parent to child basic example here. Let's see. We will create one simple example here. Let's create a component. Yeah. Let's create a weather app. We will create one weather app. In that weather app folder, so weather app dot .jsx and weather details dot .jsx. Weather app JSX and weather details JSX. So we will create export function weather app. Okay. And this we will keep container fluid. Yeah. And this is weather details. Weather details. So here we need to just display the details. Just roughly I'm adding. We will start with weather app. We are starting with weather app. Okay, weather app is currently empty. Now, in this weather app, we are designing a simple interface. We are creating a small interface in this weather app. So, for example, BG secondary, we have a div and we are adding class padding for BG light. So we are having like this style, height, and everything we will put. So we are having a style. Okay. Height some 100 VH. So we are having like this. Actually, we also have deflex, justify content center, align item center. Okay. Now this is W50 or 75. It will be like this. So rounded, 2 or 3, little corner curved. Okay. And we have a style height as some 400 pixel. Like this we are having. In this weather app, I created a div and another div class as so input group and actually here we are having a text box. Input type is text. So class form control and placeholder your city name and we have a button. BTN search, BTN warning, BI search. Okay, this is a search bar you are having. So here we will keep a heading. So weather app text center. Okay, this is an weather app we are having. So BI and BI cloud. So BI cloud. So BI some cloud rainfall, something like this we are having. Now, what is the point here is you enter the city name, details must come here. That means you enter the city name and click on search. The data is submitted and it is displayed below, but the details is shown in another component. Details is shown in another component. That means actually we are having below this button, below this input group, I will add another div class margin top, and here we will use, here we will put the weather details. So weather details, we will put weather details component there. This component, you can see the component will be there in the weather details component. We are having any information, details is there. So we have a parent and we have a child component. Now in this, we need to display the details. Let's go to weather details. Class name is BG suppose light, and shadow. Shadow is LG large. We'll have like this, and padding is 3. Some gap will come. This details is just different I am giving here. Now, what is the concept is the city name entered here will be transported to details. What details have to do is display the weather of that city. That means it should display the weather of that particular city. First, how we can display the weather of any city here? We can display the weather of any city. For that, you need weather API, openweathermap.org. This is openweathermap.org. This is a website which will provide you free weather data, but limited. Means not highly accurate because you are using free. You pay money, they will give you correct data. But free is approximately 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour back. What is weather? It will show. That is okay. For practice, you can try this. If you pay money, then you will get the accurate weather. Not only that, they provide weather history also. Next 5 days, how weather going to be, previous 40 years, how weather is, they will show. That means this is a paid service, but a free registration can happen and you can use with limited, right? So what we will do is here to handle this, I will show you the concept of, so we are going to build an example of, so weather app, we are going to build one weather app. So to build weather app, what you have to do is first create a new account, create a new free account. So create a new free account at this website. So you create a new account at this website. And after that, create a new account and log in into your account to get API key. You will get a free API key. Log in into your account to get API key. This is important to use APIs. Fake store is not asking any keys, but several APIs will ask you keys. You have to use a key because their data is used worldwide. So many people use regularly, so they need to protect the data. So here API key is, suppose I will sign in into my account. Okay. And you see, your profile will come. In the profile, you will have my API keys. You select my API keys, and this is the API key you have to copy. Remember, everybody's API key is not same. Every PC will have a different according to IP address. You cannot copy my API key and use that. It is IP based key generated. So you have to get the API key. I will roughly put it here. This is the API key I'm using. It is available in my profile, and in the my profile, my API keys. You will find there in the category. Now, once you got the API key, then what you have to do is go to API docs. So, and select current weather data. Go to API docs and select current weather data. So you need to go to API docs. Here you will see API documents will be there, right? You click on that API. These are API documents. In the API documents, you will see current weather data API document will be there. Select current weather data API document, and you can see right side, you can observe here request by city name is there. You will find a request by city name. You can request by latitude, longitude. Latitude, longitude means later I will show that concept also. You can allow location. When you allow location, it will give the current location data. Or you enter city name. I want to get by city name. So click that request by city name, and you see they will give you API URL. So copy that API URL. So what you have to do here, select request API by city name. They will give you this one. This is the API key, and this is the data. Okay, roughly I'm just giving it. Now, actually, what you have to do is here. Yeah, what you have to do here is in this, you need to do two changes. One is city name, another one is API key. You have to replace the city name with what city you want, and API ID is your key name. What is the API key? For example, how the URL will be. I will copy this one. Generally, how the URL will be. The URL will be like this. Here, city name Q equal to what is it? Hyderabad. Am I right? And the API key. Delete this and put this key number. Am I right? You have to put the key number there. I will keep this smaller. So I'm just adding that API key number like this. That is the API key and everything. We need to put like this. This is the URL. This is the final URL. And observe here, I will copy this URL and paste in the address bar. And you see this is the data. Understood? That means this is the JSON data coming, and this is related to which location? Hyderabad. And now what is our responsibility is to present this data. Na? First, you need to understand the data. What it is returning object. In that object, where is temperature? You can see temperature is inside a main area. Na? In main, we have a temp. but temperature it is showing some Fahrenheit. So what we will do here, you can add one more into the query, ampersand. You can put units is equal to unit is equal to matrix. That means here you can add ampersand, units is equal to metric. Okay, units is equal to which unit? Metric. If you add units is equal to metric, then it will get in the metric units where temperature is 21.73. So this is the complete URL which will get us the data and display. Now how to display the current weather data? Let's see. We will go to details. This details have to bring data from an API. And what is the data you are expecting? Constant. So we are expecting a weather object. Am I right? Set weather object. Weather object. And is equal to what it is? Use state. I'm expecting an object. In that object, I don't want all, only few details. What are those? Observe. In this object, I want weather. In the weather, there is main or description. Description says scattered clouds. This I want. So it is present in which area? Weather. Weather is an array of objects. So we are expecting a weather. Weather is an array. Just I will keep an array. Okay. Now another one. After weather and after weather there is a main. We have a main. Main is an object type. In the main object we have a temperature. Am I right? Temperature is empty. A number. I will put 0. Okay. What else? I want you can display others, wind speed, anything. I will display only the name. That means we have another one. Directly we are having a name. Name is null because it is a string. So I want to display this data here. I want to display the data here. This is the data I'm expecting. You can collect all the data. I don't want all the data. I want weather. I want main. In main, we need a temperature. Another one, we need the name, city name. So how to fetch the data from URL? You know that. So we will create a function load weather data. Am I right? And here what we will do is here we will use axios.get and I will paste this URL. Understood? I will paste this URL and I need to add unit. Units is equal to metric. Okay. Dot then if it is successful, get the response. Set weather object. What is it? Response dot data. And on use effect at the time of mounting, we need to load the weather data. So here we need to put load weather data. Default weather is coming related to Hyderabad. Later we will change the cities. Okay. Now here we want to display the weather detail. Huh? So here I want to display the city name. How do we get the city name? Weather object dot what name? It will get the city name. Understood? Right. Next, I want here another div and here I want the temperature. So temperature, how we can get the temperature? Weather object dot main dot what? Temp. And I will use here as ampersand deg semicolon, that is degree symbol C. Okay. And I will use class font size as 1 or 2, font weight as bold. And you can see that it is going to display the weather here. It will get the weather and show. Understood? So we are accessing the weather of that particular city and displaying the details. We can put lot of more details here. So I will just put here a break. So I will put font size is same. I will put a smaller one. I will put a simple one. And here we will put weather object dot main. Sorry, not main. We have a weather 0. In that we have a option called description. Am I right? I will put description and description will come slash scattered clouds. The description we are accessing and displaying there. I will put the description to uppercase. Huh? That means it will get that and display in uppercase letters. We can add icons, symbols, so many things we can add. I'm not concentrating on that you do. You see the original weather app, put symbols, icons, whatever colors, effects. Now, what is the point is directly the data is related to Hyderabad, but it should come from here now. So we will enter the city name and that city related weather should come. Actually, now what happens is here, if I change the city name, so let's say load weather data. Here we will use city name. We are using city name without context. Without context, how you can do is we can use here props. We can make it as a controlled component props. And what is the props data we have to display here? Here we need to put dollar expression. We have to get props dot what? City. That means we are expecting a city name. So initially the city name is not displayed there. We need to send the city name from the parent. How parent will send the city name? This is weather app. It should send the city na. And what is the city name? City name I sent as suppose Delhi. I'm sending the city name as Delhi. That means it should get the report of Delhi and it should display. But still it is not completed because we need to dynamically transport na. It says that description is not available. Why description is not available? Because the concept is same. What is it? By default, it is not having description. That means here weather is an object. What is it is having? Description. What type? Null. But remember, the city name is not recognized. That is the reason it is not coming. Why city name is not recognized? Because we need lot of hierarchy. I will explain the hierarchy because currently this is empty. Na? Currently that is empty. So that will be passed from the parent later, right? That is the reason it is showing error. So this cannot be empty. We need to set with some default value. We need to put it with the default value. So how you put the default value? How you put the default value into this? How we can display the default value into this? Here city name is null, na? Right? It should be null only. But here default one city name should come. After that we should able to change. The properties you are passing from the parent. The property. What is the property? It is expecting city. City we are passing and the city it should use there. But this is not used as default. It is not used as default. We need to put some default value. I will remove this. I will remove this part also, props. And here I will keep a default city name. What is it? Hyderabad. Okay, and you can see it is going to display that Hyderabad and show. What is problem? Description. I will remove that. Oh, some problem. Here, by default, weather is coming now. Sometimes I told you weather API will take time to load. Any change we have. Weather app are displaying. We'll go to the details. Here, this weather have an object. It is fine. Okay, weather description here we need to get from where? Weather object dot weather of 0 dot what? Description. So it will get that. Okay, fine. So API problem. That means sometimes API takes time to load. It is the problem. Okay. Now we need to achieve this in two ways. One, from the parent, we need to send data to the child. This city name is not fixed, na? So city name will be changing. It will come from parent. In two ways, we will do this. One is by using props, and second one is by using context. We will do by using two techniques now. First, remember, any city name dynamically will be changing, right? First, up to this, I will give an example. This is example of weather app. 2 points are there. Let me copy weather app. This is weather app dot what? JSX. Fine. Another one is weather details dot what? JSX. Separately we design. Now we need to transport data from the parent to child. That we'll see tomorrow. Today time is not enough for this design. Okay, you try this. First up to this try. Tomorrow we will achieve this in two ways. By using context and by using props. Okay. If you can practice, I will give you some more task on this.